Hi there, welcome to my talk for API Days London 2023, Uptime, Meantime, and Ahead of Your Time, How to Accelerate API Product Innovation. So let's get started. Who am I? I'm Anna Daugherty. I am the Director of Product Marketing at Opsera. Opsera is the Unified Insights DevOps platform for continuous release orchestration. Previously, I was the Director of Product Marketing at Armory, the continuous deployment platform, and Stoplight. If you'll recall, Stoplight is the API design and documentation platform that was recently acquired by SmartBear. So congrats to that team. Really enjoyed working with them. So as you can see, I have a little bit of experience from APIs all the way through the DevOps lifecycle. So I try to bring that experience and unify it today to deliver some insights. The first thing I want to talk about is why accelerate API innovation. This is a buzzword, innovation, and it almost doesn't mean anything just because of how buzzy it is currently. What does it mean to deliver innovation in your software? Well, according to Google, often innovation arises not from inventing something new, so much as it arises from activating the existing value of your software in new ways. For this, APIs are a huge, huge boon because they can facilitate exposing the value of your software within your organization by making the data and functionality easy for external developers to access and reuse. And then it can also facilitate innovation by opening up the value of your assets to external innovators. So not just your internal developers, but also external third-party partners, developers developing their own applications, corporate partners, or even independent developers who are just noodling around and want to try something new to really showcase the value of the data and technology that you offer. In a survey by Postman, they said that APIs generate about more than a quarter of the business's total revenue. So it's 43% said that a quarter of their revenue comes from APIs. That's interesting to me because you would think that that number would be higher, but I guess it's increasing. If you listened to Paolo's keynote at API Days London, he says we're in a post-API economy world, and we're past the point of expecting APIs to drive revenue, and we're more to the point where we should be figuring out how to deliver APIs better. And so that's a lot of where this talk comes from, is we know that APIs are driving value, we know that they're driving revenue, but how can we do them better? And the first place is to know where to start. My philosophy is always people plus processes plus technology. And we'll get a little bit more into this and why it matters in a bit, but let's start by first establishing a baseline. Here's where all those industry buzzwords are going to come together. And the first thing they're going to come together with is DORA metrics. So half of the people who attended this talk were familiar with DORA, the other half were not. So let's do a quick refresher about what DORA metrics are and how they're being used today and why you're starting to hear about them more and more frequently. So DORA is the DevOps Research Assessment Team. They are funded by Google, and they produce every year a State of DevOps report. And this report goes back to, I believe, 2017. And they, use a ton of survey data as well as third-party insights to understand how teams are performing across software. And what they've determined there are 4 key measures that determine whether a team is delivering software in a high-performant way all the way down to no performant way. So let's start with velocity. There are 2 metrics that determine how fast people are able to deliver software. The first one is lead time for changes. So this is how long does it take you from going from code committing to successfully running in a production environment. This is a really important metric for developers because if they're constantly trying to deliver innovative new features, enhancements, even new products, If they have a long lead time, then that means it's harder and harder for the end user to experience those changes that they're making. The next velocity measurement is deployment frequency. How often does your organization deploy code to production or release it to end users? So not only is the lead time for change important, how long does it take from code commit to production? How often are developers able to deploy? The next couple of measures are about stability. So not only are you delivering code fast, but you also have to deliver quality code that's stable and your end users can not feel the pain of an outage. So change failure rate is the first of these two measures. Change failure rate is the percentage of changes to production or release to users that result in degraded service or require remediation. So if you push a piece of code and it brings the whole system down, what percentage of those changes cause those kind of service outages? And secondly, if something does go wrong, what is the time to restore service? So how long does it take you to remediate these problems? And these two are very important for that sort of outcome that we're going to talk about in the next slide. So velocity, yes, you're releasing innovations and new features and enhancements very quickly, but does any of that matter if it's not reaching your end users or your customers? If all they can experience is the pain of an outage or broken code, then the innovation you've delivered is not important to them. So all of these 4 metrics are obviously crucial to describing whether your team is high performing or not, but they're not the end all be all. I believe these are a nice framework to start to measure, but I think there's also another side to the coin, and that is outcome-based measurement. So not only are you delivering software fast and stable, you also need to know the impact of what you're delivering. And so I've kind of created this little framework to help us describe what those outcomes are from a more people-oriented viewpoint. And the first one is customer satisfaction. So I hinted at the previous slide, if nobody's experiencing your code or experiencing the value from it, does it really matter? And how do you determine that, right? There are a few examples here of ways you can start to measure what that customer satisfaction looks like. NPS scores, your customer success team, G2 and reviews, so third-party review sites, testimonials from your customers. All of those things will start to paint a picture about how much value is being driven by the delivery of your software. Second, and I think this is one of the most important metrics, which is employee satisfaction. If delivery is easy, deployment is easy, your developers are able to do the jobs that they want to do, they'll feel enabled and they'll be able to deliver more and more quality software. But if you feel the pain and you see just burnt out developers, they're just not going to be able to deliver in the same way. So how do you determine? Here are a few example ways to determine employee satisfaction. Surveys obviously are a great one. Glassdoor is a really great way to get the insights into anonymized viewpoints from your employees. And of course, social media. Are they posting about the fun things that they're creating? Are they griping about the things that they have to do at their jobs? It's really important to keep an eye on those things because it'll paint a better picture about how your employees feel about the work that they're doing. And thirdly, this is being able to unite the delivery of your software, the innovations you're delivering, and how it's impacting the business, and that is market share. Are you absolutely creating more opportunities for revenue and investment from the software that you're delivering? And the ways you can determine this are pipeline, and not a continuous delivery pipeline. In this way, I mean a sales pipeline. Are you creating more sales opportunities for your software? Are you gaining more investment opportunities? Is someone going to give you a Series B funding because they really love the software that you're creating? Or C, are you having more opportunities for partnerships? Can you partner with other people who are doing great things in the space because of the way that you're able to deliver software? So these are 3 ways you can start to derive the outcomes-based measurement. And of course, these are just examples. Everything depends on how your business operates. But the most important thing is that you're you're establishing some kind of baseline that you can inform your engineering teams about, because they need to care about the way that they're delivering software. Does it make customers happy? Is it gaining more revenue opportunities, more investment? And does it make them satisfied to produce that software? Those are all going to determine how performing your team is. So we went through all of that, but now the next question is, where do APIs fit in this entire talk? And I wanted to kind of show a little picture, side by side, of the way that traditional software DevOps life cycles look. You've got your planning and design stage, your coding and building stage, where your developers are coding and then building the artifacts, the testing stage, which hopefully, if you're performing well, you're testing throughout the life cycle. And then you're going to release and deploy the code, and then monitor it to see how it's working. And similarly, APIs have their own lifecycle, and it very much matches what we just saw in the DevOps lifecycle. You create it, you test it, you deploy it, you tune it, you get feedback from it, and then the cycle starts over again. So as you can see, very, very similar life cycles. And so there's a lot of parallels that can be drawn between people who are creating APIs and people who are creating software at large. So all of that to say, now, how do we put into practice those key outcomes that I described earlier for velocity, stability, customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, and market share? And it all goes back to the three things I talked about at the beginning: people, processes, and technologies. So in these next few slides, you'll see some key capabilities that were identified both by the Accelerate group. They are the group that works on DORA every year. They wrote a book called Accelerate in 2017, which is a fantastic book, totally recommend. But those key capabilities have been identified in the Appendix A. I've drawn out a few of them here, but this is also coupled with some of my own opinionated versions of what some key capabilities should be for your people, processes, and technology in order to better deliver software. So let's start with people. You need to foster a culture of continuous improvement. And this is something that I heard a lot about at API Days, and then at the Continuous Deliveries Foundation Mini Summit recently. Continuous improvement is a people-driven philosophy above continuous integration and continuous delivery. It exists as part of your team ethos. You always want to strive for improvement, and that means individual improvement, that means team improvement. And it's not about measuring code commits. It's not about measuring developer productivity, which to me doesn't really exist. It's about instilling a drive to improve your software, to improve outcomes, and to feel like you're contributing in a way that makes you happy. That's very hard to quantify, but it's definitely something to strive for and to model your leadership after. The next is to focus on team outcomes and not developer productivity. Like I just said, we're not focusing on individual code commits. We're not focusing on individual velocity or number of times deployed. It's about how well your team is performing as a whole. And those DORA metrics can apply to give you a framework and a baseline to measure your team performance, but they shouldn't be the end all be all, like I said earlier. One key capability to make your teams happier and more satisfied is to empower your developers' tools of choice. Right now, it's very much a culture of do more with less. We're cutting software, we're cutting tools, we're cutting budgets. And studies have shown that developers who are able to use the tools that they want have higher and better outcomes. And finally, the last people-driven key capability is high collaboration and communication. Teams that collaborate across the business and communicate well are high performing and contribute to a better overall organizational performance. So this quote comes from the Accelerate book. When teams decide which tools they use, it contributes to software delivery performance and in turn to organizational performance. When your teams get to choose what they want to use and you enable it in a way that is delightful, easy, unified, they have better software delivery and your organization benefits from it. So let's move on to processes. So now we've got the individuals and the teams. Now we need to know, what can we do that's repeatable, stable, and able to be implemented across teams. Some key capabilities here are continuous integration and continuous delivery. This is almost table stakes at this point. Your APIs should be part of this. You should be able to continuously deploy code. You should be able to automate and create APIs with infrastructure as code. Again, table stakes. This is how developers are working. It's how they want to work. You should integrate testing and security at every point of the life cycle. And you should instill mechanisms for immediate feedback. So the whole point about delivering APIs is that it's a very fast way to expose the business value of your data and technology. And so you need to be able to know if it's working. So feedback from users, from customers, some sort of mechanism that gathers that feedback and allows developers to work on issues immediately, quickly. Again, from Accelerate, teams that reported no approval process or used peer review achieved higher software delivery performance. Teams that required approval by an external body achieved lower performance. I think this is really important for businesses to start to understand. For a long while, you were seeing a lot of approval boards or third-party folks who stood in the way of teams being able to deploy changes frequently and quickly. But what this research has shown is that no approval process has shown higher software delivery performance than that sort of standing in the way check mark. So I would say, how do you actually do this in a way that both prevents problems, but also allows your developers to innovate quickly, is to use a lightweight change approval process. Infrastructure as code obviously is going to allow change requests to happen quickly. And you can, put as part of the pipeline, this is a change. You need to, make sure you've peer reviewed at this step before you go on to the next step in the pipeline. So automatically detect and reject bad changes with automations, and then peer review code to make sure you're performing high quality. And then the third of the key pieces of capabilities are technology. So you need to be able to continuous deployment and release orchestration. Hit commit, goes to deploy it to production. The pipeline is automated with security, testing integrated. It's going to prevent outages because you're either doing best of breed canary deployments or blue-green deployments, something that prevents bad code from going out. You need to have unified insights. So when I say that tools of choice will make your developers happy, well, a unified insight strategy will make the business happy. So taking all of the data that you have from all the tools developers are using and unifying it in a way that is accessible, is actionable, gives visibility across the business is key to high performance. Having a platform engineering thinking, and tool chain and management, platform engineering is the way to go. So even if you don't have a platform per se, if all of your products are coming together in a platform strategy, that gives everyone more opportunity to cross-collaborate, to think about the benefits across the business, to take advantage of the teams working on individual things without duplication. It's just a platform way of thinking, and enabling that through management and tool chains is going to increase productivity. It's going to increase innovation, and it's going to increase the way that developers think about how they're creating software. And finally, treat your APIs as products, not just as pieces of technology. So we saw that life cycle, that API product life cycle. Like I said, it's very much the same as a software lifecycle. And so when you design your APIs, when you get customer feedback for them, when you are able to deploy them quickly, roll back if there are changes that need to happen to prevent outages. APIs are just as important and drive just as much business value as other software and need to be treated as such and part of your platform strategy. Again, here's that API lifecycle just as a refresher. I want to leave you with this. High-performing teams can deploy to production or to end users on demand throughout the software delivery lifecycle. So hit commit, straight to deployment, through automation, through integrated testing, without those barriers that are preventing them from deploying their code. Here's what it looks like in practice. So you're usually pretty familiar with continuous integration and delivery. And the difference between continuous delivery and continuous deployment is that when the approved artifact is ready to deploy, it goes to production automatically. Here's a little case study about continuous deployment. So this is from a fintech stealth organization that is building the plane as they're flying it. And they wanted to build a fintech software that relies on pipelines with continuous deployment for all of their 15 developers. So they can all have standardization and they can all deploy on commit. And what did that do for them? So in action, their lead time for changes is 8 minutes. Google identifies that a lead time for changes of 10 to 15 minutes is high performing, so they're already doing well. They're able to deploy new features, enhancements, fixes, innovations in as little as 8 minutes, which is really exciting and something that they're hoping continues to be the benchmark for their deployments going forward. Their change failure rate is 4.5%, again, considered high performing by Dora metrics. They're able to deploy on average 4.3 times per day. What's interesting is that a high performing team is able to deploy more than 1 time per day, and they're doing 4 deployments per day. That's a nice, steady, high velocity deployment rate. It's not overwhelming for teams. They're able to deploy on a Friday afternoon and not worry about it. Don't have to deploy all weekend. Don't have to come back into the office to fix anything. It's a nice, steady measurement to show that they're able to deploy frequently, but not have to wait weeks between deployments. And mean time to recovery is sub 2 minutes. So important for a fintech company to have low outages and very quick recovery times, because for every minute of time wasted with an outage, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars they could be wasting in transactions. And then internal and external NPS scores for this organization are very high. And so what that's saying is these developers are feeling satisfied with the work that they're doing. They're able to perform well, and they feel like the software that they're creating is worthwhile. Another quick case study from a nonprofit healthcare organization about developer enablement. When developers are able to use the tools of choice, their tools of choice, with an insights that unifies all of those tools of choice into Dora metrics that give them some understanding of their delivery. This is what's happened at this nonprofit healthcare organization. It has led to increased developer collaboration, satisfaction, and agility. That's both reported from the developers themselves and from the business leaders. Their productivity gains were highlighted in the way they were able to build DevOps pipelines in now 30 minutes versus the previous way they were building DevOps pipelines in about 2.5 hours. If you're at all familiar with DevOps pipelines, and especially in industries with high levels of regulation or legacy software, you can see some of these build times take days. So even at 2.5 hours, which was quite high, they being able to cut down to 30 minutes has been a godsend for these folks. And all of this led to a perceived 80% increase in productivity from the team. Like I said, measuring developer productivity is only as good as how good your developers feel. Productivity is almost a useless metric, but when your developers feel productive and they feel like they're contributing, it leads to an overall better, higher satisfaction for the team and for the business. So here's just a quick overview of the DORA model. Definitely recommend visiting the DORA Insights report. This will give you a lot of really good detailed information about each step of this core model. And here's some information about what to do next. So for a long time, DORA has taken into consideration that effects depend on broader team context. Like I said, we're not measuring individual developer productivity. We're not measuring code commits. We're measuring the strength and characteristics of your team and the delivery that they're able and enabled to do. And that's what's going to actually benefit the business through people, processes, and technology. So next step for you is to identify where you are and aren't delivering APIs quickly, collaboratively, reliably, securely, and continuously. These 5 things are obviously subjective. They matter depending on your business. So what is your quickly might be someone else's very, very slowly. But as we saw in the nonprofit healthcare instance, their quickly led to more developer satisfaction. So their version of quickly might not be the most high performing, but the bar is set at least that they can start to measure and continuously improve. So let's start with your teams. They're the ones who are creating the software. They're the ones who are solving problems, and they're the ones who are going to inevitably show how much they're able to do for your business. So are they feeling supported and enabled? Are they using the tools they love? Are they able to see the impact of their work? And are they able to engage through the entirety of the software lifecycle from design to production in a seamless, easy, frictionless way? Now that you've had a little bit of practical advice here, I wanted to give you some suggested reading to take on. The next thing I would suggest is the 2022 Accelerate State of DevOps report by that DORA metrics team. They're about to release the 2023 State of DevOps report in October, so definitely check that out. I also recommend the Value Stream Management Guide by Apsara and the Ultimate Guide to Continuous Deployment, which is a guide that I wrote for Armory. So totally recommend that if you want to give that a look about how to enable continuous deployment at your organization. And then, of course, the Science of DevOps Accelerate, Building and Scaling High-Performing Technology Organizations. A fantastic book that everyone should take a gander at if you're looking to deliver better performing software. Again, I'm Anna Daugherty, Director of Product Marketing at Apsara. You can definitely check me out on LinkedIn, connect. I would love to talk to you about your developer experience and how you're able to deliver software quicker, safer, more reliably, with more insights behind what you're doing. And then last thing here is all the artwork that you saw throughout this presentation was purchased by me from Miasa Design. Really cute software. I love, or really cute designs. I really love what she does. So go ahead and check her out if you found her artwork cute throughout this entire presentation. Thanks so much.